What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. And of course, we've got a great panel this week. I'm really excited because, as you know, she's one of my favorite people on earth, and it's been way too long since we had her on the show. My good friend, a bloody elbow, formerly a Fansided, Kristen King. Kristen, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I was so happy to get that message from you to come on the show because I knew we had a lot to talk about, and it's always great to catch up with the gang. So I'm ready.
I mean, maybe this is wrong, but I think you'll take this as a compliment. When I see a gruesome injury, I think Kristen. So you were natural to hit up for this.
I love that. I love that. And it makes me so happy. Like, it truly does warm my heart when people tag me in gruesome injuries on Twitter. That is my favorite thing to wake up to. So thank you for that. I love it.
When someone gets like severely screwed up in an MMA fight, your feed is one of the first that I go to. I go to your Twitter page like instantly to see what your reaction is. Yeah, you're there. You're all for that.
Yep.
So moving on to the people who are a little less disturbed than Kristen on the panel, we've got the jack of all trades who has mastered them all. He is the senior editor of SureDog.com. My man, Ben Duffy. Ben, what's up?
I am doing great. I will echo your sentiment that it is wonderful to have Kristen here. I'm not going to go, like too overboard. I don't know if she's one of my favorite people in the whole world, but absolutely, my favorite person from Florida. And, she's neck and neck with Casey Leydon for the best T-shirt game in MMA media. So always an honor.
All right. Wow, so y'all just gonna overlook me in the T-shirt game, but so it's all good. Now we're gonna introduce the man with the facts, the stats, the figures, and the numbers. Every week he anchors the panels. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com. My good friend Jay Petrie. Jay, what's up?
So we're going 3 for 3 on Miss King joining the show and us being excited. I believe when I got the news of this, I said, "quote She's the writer. She's the perfect person to discuss a horrific injury." So. This is going to be a lot of fun. I desperately tried to find a stat about the main event to kind of segue into it, but there's a few here and there, leg injuries, Tucker stoppages, all that kind of stuff. But there's something much more important, and I think we're going to talk about this later on in the show. That the stat of the week is 1, and the stat of the week is 1 because Tai Tuivasa, he is the first fighter in UFC history to ever pick a walkout song from the Spice Girls. He walked out to Wannabe. He got out there. He just smoked Greg Hardy in about a minute. He drank beer out of shoes. I mean, what more can I say about the guy?
Absolutely. A legend of the sport, and for knocking out Greg Hardy, the greatest of all time in the heavyweight discussions. So let's start with what's on everyone's minds, and that is the main event of UFC 264. Conor McGregor suffers a horrific broken leg to conclude the bout late in the first round. Was that considered a stoppage in between rounds?
Yes.
Or okay, stoppage okay, so first round it's over with, and Dustin Poirier gets the better of him in the trilogy. So we're going to use this for our swing or miss. And Kristen, I will begin with you. After seeing such a gruesome injury suffered by the Notorious, do you think this is the last time we see him in the cage?
I don't think that it will be. It's weird to say because I know a gruesome injury like that, when that happens, it's kind of like, well, that person's never going to be the same, but that doesn't necessarily translate into, well, they're never going to come back into the octagon again. I mean, we saw it with Anderson Silva. He broke his leg against Chris Weidman, and he did indeed return to the octagon, but was he the same? Probably not. You saw his final record before he was let go from the UFC. So I could very much see it being a similar situation with Conor, especially because I think he generates more of his power when he's on the back foot. So breaking his foot like that or breaking his ankle like that may cause a shift in strategy for him. But I don't think this is the last time we'll see him. I think he is pretty adamant that he wants to get this one back. He was already promoting a 4th fight while on the ground, shouting obscenities to Dustin Poirier and his wife, Jolie. So I guarantee you Conor will be back because there used to be a time where he could handle a loss somewhat well. When he lost to Nate Diaz at UFC 196, there was an interview that he did and he just seemed very calm, collected, and just realized that, yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm probably going to get that one back. And then a few months later at UFC 202, he did exactly that. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know. I think maybe the weight of the loss of Khabib Nurmagomedov played a huge role in kind of how he approaches things now. I know he tried to do the nice guy thing, and it didn't really work for him. It didn't really work. So he went back to old Conor, and I don't know if we'll ever see old Conor like that again, but he's definitely going to fight because I don't think he's going to go out on a loss. It's just something in me that just doesn't see that happening for someone like Conor.
It's not that I disagree. It's just so funny to hear you say he tried being a decent human being, and he was like, no, not for me.
I don't like it.
Not my cup of tea.
He tried.
There was some genuine effort in his previous 2 fights to be like a cordial human to his opponent, and obviously that approach was completely abandoned this time around. Jay, Ben, I'm going to direct the question at you with a slight twist, and I like the way Kristen's thinking about this. Last time we're seeing someone in the octagon is a different thing than them being the same. Do you think Conor McGregor athletically can return to what he was after this injury?
I think Kristen's comparison to Anderson Silva was actually really appropriate because the leg break, it's not as though Anderson Silva made a night and day change to before and after the leg injury. If you look back, it's more a case of he was probably already in decline. It just didn't catch up with him until the first and then the second Weidman fight. And now we see it as just kind of like a dip in a road that was already going down. I think McGregor's been in decline for a while already. Like peak McGregor, if we're going to call that maybe the Alvarez fight, he's been on the way down since. And yeah, he's not the same fighter he was. We haven't seen that just fluid, untouchable technician that made other good strikers look silly in a long, long time. He'll be back. I agree with Kristen that we'll see him fight again. He's too competitive a guy. He's not going to let this go, but he'll still have the power, but he's just not the same fighter. I mean, I think it was Cormier who said it on the broadcast that it's not just that he's stayed still for the last 5 years, but it's almost like his skills have eroded. It's like this Tyson-esque thing where he's just become a headhunter and knockout artist, and he's just not the complete striker that he was. That's a too long an answer, but yeah, he'll be back, but he won't be the same.
I don't want him to come back, and that's a pretty big.
Well, I didn't know
statement.
we could just say that. I don't want him to come back either.
No, I'm to the point that I'm good. I'm truly good. Seeing Conor McGregor compete again, lead up to a fight again, post fight, I'm good. I'm good with the whole experience. The whole situation soured me. It was the lead up to the fight, the flipping the switch that Conor did from nice guy Eddie to the devil that he is now. It felt more artificial than anything I can remember seeing for any lead up to any fight. I can think of Colby Covington plays a character. This is nothing compared to that because, Conor was a friendly, respectful, whatever guy, and then he is now telling Dustin Poirier he's going to murder him and take him out on the stretcher and do whatever he wants to do with his wife before the fight. So this wasn't just selling the fight or whatever. This was before that all happened, and then the fight's over, and he's doubling down on it to a degree that I'm really all set. The shouting in the cage that go, you're dead, you're done, and you're going to get you in your sleep. Your wife too. It's just there's no point to having him compete again. If this is the way he's going to go, if this is the way he's going to act, there has to be a line. There has to be. There can't not be. The UFC knows he's the golden goose. They know he's the biggest draw by a factor of 2 almost. But at what point do you let your golden goose start pecking at and attacking the other growing golden geese on your roster before you realize, okay, you're actually taking away from the product? So the fact that he's obviously diminishing his skills was noticeable as when Dustin Poirier took him down and he decided, I'm going to pull guard for a guillotine because I've gotten one submission in my career and I'm going to try and tap out Dustin Poirier with a guillotine. That happens to be his move. That's smart. Let's go with that. And got shellacked for the first round and then just decided, oh yeah, I'm going to take these punches in the face, take these elbows in the face. And then the stoppage happened. This was kind of like the Weidman fight. Leading up to the stoppage, Weidman was pounding it, and then the stoppage happened. So there's a good parallel that Kristen brought up there. This is it. This is all she wrote for the Conor McGregor story, because the alternative is more ludicrous than Jose Aldo getting a title shot at bantamweight after losing twice. It couldn't be more crazy, because what's the alternative? Conor comes back in a year. Say Dustin Poirier is the champion. He beats Charles Oliveira, and he comes back, and Conor comes back. Conor gets a title shot after losing twice in a row by knockout to that guy. Is that how we're going to do this? So no, I think we're good. I think we're going to wash our hands of the whole situation. Say, it was a fun era, but peace.
Jay, as much as I agree with the sentiment and what you're saying, I don't think the reality is going to be anywhere near that. I mean,
too much money.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Conor McGregor could come back in a year or so, and Dustin Poirier could conceivably be the champion at that point in time. In which case, one of his title defenses, maybe his first title defense, will be against Conor McGregor. We've seen less logical things happen in the UFC. At least this one would be supported by the mountains of cash that are due to be made, and the question marks to the uneducated fans who insist that Conor McGregor was actually performing well in that first round.
It was a 10-8 round, by the way, on 2 of the 3 official scorers, not me in my armchair.
Yeah, like the people whose armchairs are actually mean something said this was a 10-8. So I would not be surprised if that were the scenario at all. Now, as far as seeing him again overall, I think I'm one to highlight again Kristen being spot on, because I think he will be seen again, but it's just not going to be the same. And I'll tell you from personal experience, like I've probably shared this story on this show before, but about a decade or so ago, I had almost the identical break in my leg in training, a takedown gone wrong, my tibia and fibula snap. I had surgery, the same sort of surgery that repaired Anderson Silva's and Conor McGregor's leg with the intermedular rod and screws and all. I've got the same deal, right? Athletically, I think I was told I wouldn't walk again for like 6 months. They were estimating about 6 months before I could just walk unassisted and kind of feel like myself on my feet. I was in really good shape going in because I was training 2 a days. I was eating right and stuff. I healed up enough to walk and work again as a bartender on my feet for 10 hours at a time about 2 months later. So athletically, you can come back from that. Conor McGregor, with the absolute top-notch medical care, with gazillion dollars to throw at all sorts of therapists and and surgeons and whoever else he needs to get back on track. However, the challenging part for me is the mental aspect. The mental part is very difficult, and especially when you're someone who, now granted, we talk about Conor McGregor as his hands being so powerful, but keep in mind, him at his best, his kicks set a lot of that up. He would kick people into the direction of his left hand, and he would goad people in with his kicks to then set up his boxing. When you're reliant on your kicks so much, and then the weapon itself is compromised, well, that takes a lot out of your brain. That takes a whole lot out of your brain. There was a long time when I returned to training that I would hesitate to throw that kick at those tie pads, or I'd be in sparring and I would hesitate to throw that kick. I'd see a leg kick coming. I'm kind of scared to check it. Like that became a routine thing. He has to get over that before anything else. But even still, the McGregor show, as we know it, UFC 194, UFC 189, 202, and all these blockbuster pay-per-views and the crazy aura around it, that era is long gone. Now let's show a little bit of love now to the X's and O's of the fight. Now, we did allude to the 10-8 scorecards. We did allude to the delusion of people who seem to think Conor McGregor was having his way with Poirier in the striking realm. I mean, Kristen, Ben, Jay, 10-8 for Dustin in your books too, or are we giving strong 10-9s in favor of Dustin?
I understand why two of the judges gave a 10-8 because, you know, if you're at a live event, you know that either the ref or the regulator is coming around and grabbing that piece of paper from you, you know, like 5 seconds after the round's over. I would have handed over a 10-8 as well until I realized that what happened in those last couple seconds was not a knockdown, but an injury. Because I was like, oh, if that's another clean knockdown, this is a 10-8 easy. Understanding now what happened, I would call it a strong 10-9.
I'm comfortable with my own 10-8 scorecard, scoring it for sure, dog, because I don't have the luxury of replay. I don't have the luxury of strike totals. I don't want to have a revisionist kind of perspective about it. And I actually posed this question to the Short Dog forums, and the forums were almost split. It was just slightly more in favor of 10-9 over 10-8, but we're talking at least 40% of the hundreds and hundreds of people that decided to weigh in on it said, yeah, it could have been a 10-8 round. And again, you don't have strike totals. So what you have to do when you're scoring this fight is if you're going to score a 10-8 round, the official rules are duration, dominance, duration, and damage. Impact is the third one, but damage, the 3 Ds. Now, I believe that in the fight that Poirier, the first minute of the fight was not in his favor. Conor landed 7 or 8 good hard leg kicks. I think at least one of the spin back kicks hit the body. He landed a couple good blows, maybe about a dozen or so, until Poirier rocked him. By the way, let's be clear here, and some people disagree very strongly that Poirier hurt him. Poirier hurt Conor, which is why Conor then clinched up. There was the short uppercut and a little combination, and Conor was wobbled and then leaned forward to grab hold of him and clinch up. I replayed this a few times, and Conor's not a panic clincher until he is. I mean, you saw that in the Diaz fight when he eventually shot for the takedown and Poirier took him down. So the damage of those strikes from Poirier outweighed the ones before, the leg kicks and whatnot. The ground strikes, Poirier absorbed from up kicks. He got elbows on the ground, but his were 5 times more emphatic. You know, the damage he did to his ear, which that was very interesting, how he busted up his ear. I didn't notice that until I saw the post fight, and I saw it almost looked like part of his ear was hanging off in a very strange way. But the damaging blows, and then when he got up because of the glove grab and the whole stand up thing, I interpreted the strike as a knockdown. I couldn't have seen. Watching the strikes go and then notice, oh, down here there's a broken ankle or tibia. I couldn't have foreseen that. So I'm comfortable with the fact that I saw that knockdown, damage before, damage at ground and pound. What I expected felt like about 2-to-1 strike totals just by how I watched it, that I had it 10-8. But I can see the argument for 10-9. But what I can't see, and I want you guys to talk me out of this, I can't see the revisionist takes of saying, since it wasn't a knockdown, it's a 10-9. Because we don't have the replay.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You gotta judge by what you see in front of you at the moment. So
you judge it right after the round ends. You don't judge it after the replays and the whatever.
Yeah, with the luxury of like an ESPN, wrap up show and
slow-mo and
then going back, it just doesn't work that way. Kristen, were you going 10-8 or 10-9?
I think when I first watched it, I was like, okay, that's probably a strong 10-9. I was very much in the same boat as Ben. And then when I rewatched it and saw everything that happened, I was like, yeah, the first minute may not have been Dustin's, but the next 4 certainly were. So, and especially when he got him on the ground and started unloading those elbows, I thought he was going to get a stoppage because Herb Dean started moving super close at one point.
Yeah.
I was like, I think he's got it. I think he's got it. And then, Herb Dean let him fight on, that's another thing. We'll talk about Herb Dean and his
Herb Dean. Mm-hmm.
I love Herb Dean, but oh my God. But anyway, I thought at one point there could have been a very close stoppage that would have happened a lot earlier. And then we saw him fall down. I thought that was also a knockdown. Obviously, no one could have seen the broken ankle at that point. It was only revealed afterwards when they were just about to get to round 2 that he had indeed suffered an injury. So I could see the argument for a 10-8, and I think my mind definitely switched after rewatching it for a second time. And I don't understand why people are trying to make it seem like, well, that wasn't technically a knockdown, so it's not a 10-8. I'm like, no, he was still getting thoroughly dominated for 4 minutes of the first round. And if you're getting dominated like that, then yeah, I would definitely give you that round minus that 1 point. So 10-8, yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, either way, I mean, it's a losing round for McGregor. So it's kind of like what are we? So it's a losing round in a fight that he lost. We're really just playing semantics here at this point.
If I can, I think there's a reason why it really rang true for me, and why I actually polled the audience, and why I was curious your guys' thoughts on it as well. And I think this is probably the best place to bring it up about Coach Kavanagh saying essentially we had Dustin Poirier right where we wanted him, and things were going great for Conor. The second round was going to be all different. It was just starting to turn around.
Do you know what that reminded me of? I'm sorry.
Edmund Tarvadian?
No, not even that. Do you remember when when Conor fought Khabib? And I think it was like in the second round where Khabib started unloading those elbows, and Dominic Cruz was on commentary like, it's fine. Conor's letting him tire himself out. I was like, is that
what?
Yeah, what do you oh, okay, yeah, Khabib's gonna get tired. Yeah, sure. And then the third round, Conor's gonna come back for sure, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like he's gonna be so much better after getting elbowed in just incredibly to the head for the better part of 5 minutes. Yeah, fantastic way to start off the fight.
And he got knocked down in that round too by Khabib. So yeah,
silliness.
Coming back from adversity, turning it on in the later rounds that's definitely Conor McGregor's MO. That's how we see him win over and over again.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's not like this is actually a question that I'm curious about, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. Has he ever lost a first round other than when he was finished by like Joe Duffy and Artem Sitikov? The guy early on in his career. Sitikov. I don't think he'd ever given up.
So.
Khabib fight. It's about the only one I can think.
Yeah, the Khabib fight, but he
took the first round for Dustin. He took both the first rounds for the Diaz.
Yeah, so that's probably it. I think, or maybe the Chad Mendes fight. Maybe
that's kind of what I was wondering, if the takedowns and.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, like this will be rewriting the narrative that Conor has clearly scripted for his career. So. The Kavanagh thing I find particularly ridiculous. I mean, what fight was he watching? Like, I will give him credit for the fact that yes, adjustments can be made between rounds, and it wasn't like Conor was not competitive during that time. He did have his moments. He did start off very strong, as we kind of expected him to. He did land some shots, and surprisingly, he didn't look completely worn out after the ground exchanges. So there was room for improvement, but to say that, this is exactly what we wanted to happen, like this is nuts. But this is also the same camp that prepared for Manny Pacquiao while they were trying to fight Dustin Poirier a few months ago. This is the same camp that seems to have some sort of issue with actually like getting this guy to train the way he should at times. Like I think this is like Edmund Tarvadian level of delusion, borderline Fabia level of delusion of what you're seeing as opposed to what's actually happening. And I think as far as Conor being the guy to return to form, I mean, you got to think a camp switch is going to be necessary. A camp switch would have to be necessary, because this guy running the ship just doesn't seem to make sense anymore. Am I talking crazy, or do you agree with me here?
Well, you're making sense from my standpoint, but I have a hard time picturing it happening because Conor is clearly finally groomed Kavanagh and SPG into a yes man camp for him. It reminds me of BJ Penn in his prime, where I mean, there might have been a head coach in name, but nobody was really making him do things he didn't want to do.
Or maybe even like a Brock Lesnar.
Sure. But I feel as though Brock Lesnar was probably getting pushed harder by, was it Greg Nelson up there?
I think so.
Then, like I think he probably at least took, his coach's advice on how to prepare for his fights. Whereas, Penn was like, I don't want to do cardio, so you're not going to make me do it. And this wasn't the case even just a couple years ago. It seemed as though Kavanagh was, a little more in charge, and McGregor maybe, trusted him a little more, but that's just not the case anymore. Like this kind of delusional statement is not something I would have heard from him before or after the Khabib fight.
Yeah, I think that Conor is loyal to a fault. Like he's definitely not going to leave the people that basically he got it out the mud with. He's not going to just drop Team SBG, especially considering the type of talent and stuff that has been coming out there. Now we're seeing like these well-known names coming out from this gym. So of course he's not going to leave those people. And it would be somewhat hypocritical because look how he treated TJ Dillashaw on The Ultimate Fighter. That was part of the buildup when he was like, oh, you're a snake in the grass. He's coming in here. He's going to take your coach. He's going to take your team, da-da-da. And then everything that transpired between TJ Dillashaw and Uriah Faber happened. And he's like, see, you're a snake. You don't stay with the people that you're loyal with. So if he leaves Team SVG and John Kavanagh, people are going to be like, oh, but I thought you said this person was a snake for doing exactly what you're considering doing, So I understand that he doesn't want to leave, but then if you don't leave, then you're not going to grow. And he said that he was working on all the mistakes that he made in the second fight with Dustin. And I truly believe that because he started throwing some leg kicks. He started checking some leg kicks, which was great. Ultimately, it was still not good enough to best Dustin. So I don't know what happens to him next.
Yeah, I mean, maybe an alternative solution is bringing new people into SBG. I mean, you got to think like a mind like Phil Nurse might be very useful in this camp. Like there's certain people who can sort of mold their teaching style to what he already brings to the table. Because you look at some of the other options out there of other coaches who've been doing a fine job with retooling fighters. I mean, Trevor Whitman is the first person that comes to mind. Conor has left such a bad taste in the mouth of so many other fighters that he probably can't just walk into another gym. Like he can't just walk into grudge training because Justin Gaethje might have something to say about that. He can't just walk into ATT because, hey, you did just threaten to kill one of their premier members' wives in their sleep. They're AKA, you damn sure can't walk into AKA without the Dagestani mob coming after you. So I think he has to start importing talent. And then the alternative from that, I think, sets him up for even more downfall because I think his boxing training is what's derailed a lot of him from a strategic standpoint. Like, you're going to go to wild card now? Like, no, that's just going to make things worse for you. Like you got to, I don't know, man, maybe call Duke Rufus or something. I don't think, did he piss off the Pettis brothers at all? I don't know. Maybe you can call Duke Rufus. No, but still, like, something needs to be done if he is to have a semblance of what he was 2016. Yeah, I think that's very, very clear at this point. But let's how about now we show just a little bit of love to the man who actually won, the man who is on his way to another shot at the undisputed title, this time versus Charles Oliveira. Dustin Poirier. Now, not the way he envisioned winning this fight, a win nonetheless, though. Do you think his stock rises from this, or we're about the same?
My heart hurts for Dustin Poirier because this is one of the few instances where his stock probably doesn't go anywhere. And that's crazy. He beat Conor McGregor. Like, I mean, you can see, I think it was Eric Nixick and his mother actually, who very, very slowly analyzed the actual moment where Conor threw out a kick and Poirier blocked with his elbow. And as soon as Conor set it back down, you could see it wasn't quite right. He took a step back and you could see it was pretty much separated. So he blocked a kick and Conor's leg snapped, or his tibia snapped. So that's a win. That's a period at the end. Exactly. That is exactly right. That how can you, it's preposterous to think that there's a large segment of the MMA community that is barking like crazy, saying there's no way that Poirier won that fight. It's not legitimate. Dana White, I'm shouting on this microphone, so I'm sorry if it's screeching for you. Dana White on the press conferences said that fights can't end that way. What? Again, what? I don't know if I can think of a better word than what are you talking about? That of course they can. This was a win. It says you can't have a fight finish that way. Yes, you can. It's happened to some of the best fighters in the world. Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva. I mean, sorry, Corey Hill. Tyrone Spong didn't his snap in half a long time ago. It happens. It's unfortunate. Poirier should be a megastar. Period. Look at his resume. I mean, do we have to spell it out for the fight fans that are very curious? I mean, people just have to be like, oh God, Conor McGregor twice, Dan Hooker in a fight of the year, Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, Anthony Pettis, and the loss to Khabib along the way. If that's not the hardest 8-fight stretch in MMA history, what is? Like, it blows all of them out of the water. Jones and the Fedors and the everything else. I mean, I what else is he going to take if he isn't a rock star by now? I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree.
But I think actually you're bringing up something. I'm going to pick up right where you left off on that one, Jay, because now we're looking at a juxtaposition of personalities as well. So I think this is a fine time to talk about the press conference, the pre-fight press conference and whatnot. The fact that Dustin Poirier is not a megastar in this sport shows a lot about this sport and its fan base. Like, we're talking about a man who spent his entire promotional run trying to big up charities. Like, he's trying to put running water in Ugandan villages and building playgrounds in Lafayette and like shouting out a kid that's a fan of his that has leukemia. And this is what he's talking about in the midst of someone threatening to kill him and his wife in their sleep. I am flabbergasted that people actually had the nerve to boo him, that this man is not a star. And with that being said, it's a shame that his stock will not rise as a result of this, that this will be stagnated. Maybe he will parlay it into his stock rising should he beat Charles Oliveira, or should he get another crack at cracking McGregor. I can't believe it, but I mean, what did you guys think of that press conference? What did you guys think of the cult of personality surrounding the promotion of this event and the immediate aftermath of it?
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. That's really all I have to say. It's one disappointment right into the other. I mean, we have friends of the show that limped their way through that press conference. Some of them did fine. John Morgan, he's John Morgan. He does fine. Jose Youngs, he was fine too. Schmo, I think, had a moment where he had a good question, but then it devolved into Schmo tactics. But then you go way off the rails. Duffy, please take me home here.
Well, you knew you were in trouble when the Schmo was about like the 5th weirdest dressed person in the line. Like, it's amazing that in less than 3 years, he has gone from a caricature to just kind of dead center of the new MMA media. And he's been the same dude ever since. Just the whole space has gone and like shifted behind him. This is it. I remember when my biggest complaints were that, the UFC gives access to softball hand jobbers and blacklists entire legitimate media outlets and holds decade-long grudges against people who've said mean things to them. I still care about those things, but it's almost like caring about like your gutters needing cleaning while your house is on fire. It's just unbelievable what this has turned into. And again, I say that as, somebody who'll probably be at UFC 265 in Houston next month. And thank God the CONOR fanboys will have gone home. But it was just a complete shit show. And I don't care. It's a shit show I can ignore, except that it passes for the pre-fight press conference. If they just wanted to make that thing ultimate fan experience and let anybody walk up to the mic and, try to give CONOR a handy, that's fine, as long as I don't have to pay attention to it. But if that is our source of pre-event quotes and news, then yeah, it sucks. And it makes this sport utter clown shoes.
I guess I'll ask this to you, Kristen. Could you watch the whole thing, right? This cover to cover, the whole massive...
Yes.
Kristen likes pain, both of the internal and external.
Yeah, kidding, man. The questions that were asked, like Ojo Cinco got up there and asked, why should my company bet on you? Because we're betting on you. Like that was Ocho Cinco's question. Robbie Fox asking, "Hey CONOR, are you going to do great? I'm proud of you." And the pink shirt guy, who by the way is an ESPN employee, the pink suit guy is an ESPN guy, chastising. Is that what we should be doing as media? If you got up there and you asked a question, would have any of that come into your head?
Personally, no. I probably wouldn't be one of those people to ask a question. I think I saw this on is it Jason? Jason, he tweeted out like from MMA On Point, he tweeted out like, I really don't ask questions because I don't want to be that guy. I'm very much under the same mindset. I think I'm under the impression that like I'm comfortable with there being space for everybody. And so I realize that there's going to be these types of individuals that are covering the sport. And, a niche is a niche. If that's what brings you attention, I'm all for it, as long as you don't take away necessarily from what it is that we're brought there to do. So I'm a huge fan of the Schmo. I was first introduced to him during, when was it? When did we go to the event together? And
239, I think that was.
Yes. At first, he asked that question and I was just stunned. I was like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. But then I got more of his content. I digested it. I appreciate it. I appreciate what Schmo does. And I know that there are going to be people that try to duplicate or try to be like him, but sometimes there's just only one person relegated for that spot. So I'm completely fine with that. If you want to do something else, cool. But to try and make the story about you when it's about the fighters is just kind of odd to me. I was completely caught off guard by that question about him only having one win since the Obama administration. I didn't even laugh. I was just like, okay, I guess that's just very odd to say, but it reminded me of, I don't remember that guy during the press conference for Eddie
I know
Alvarez.
which one. Yep.
I
know which one you're talking about. Yep.
God, like he literally cursed Eddie Alvarez out. I was like, what is happening here? But then I started to connect the dots and I said, maybe it's a clown show or a circus show because it's CONOR fight week. And there's a lot of shenanigans that come along with the Conor McGregor fight week. So do I think that this is going to be something that will be replicated throughout all the events? No, absolutely not. No one's going to come down to UFC Sunrise like I went to and ask those kinds of questions. There are just some cards that they truly don't care about. But when the generation of the interest is paying your bills and it's a Conor McGregor fight, of course you're going to find your way there. So I'm very much like, I appreciate that there's a space for everybody, but I can also ignore when those things start to cross the line between reporter and storyteller to instigator.
See, Kristen, I'm going to give you just a slight bit of pushback on that, because I agree with just about everything you're saying, and even talking about the Schmo, who I think his gimmick clouds the fact that he does very good work.
Yes.
Like, he asks very relevant
Yes.
questions.
Very good.
It's very attention getting what he does to initially draw you in, but if you listen to the content, he's incredibly good at what he does. So shout out to him. But I think that my big issue was, like, I know this is a Conor McGregor fight week. We're going to see all sorts of foolishness. Like, I got to be a part of the 229 media festivities, and that was just insanity. And to see that live and compare it to the other events that I've worked and other promotions I work, like, yeah, it's totally different. But we're seeing that more and more with just regular events.
Yes.
And that's what's most disturbing to me. And the fact that not only do people who are trying to make it about them step up to the mic during a McGregor fight week, but they're stepping up to the mic in a Nunes fight week. They're stepping up to the mic in a Islam Makhachev fight week. They're stepping up to the mic no matter who is up there, because, hey, look at me. I'm trying to be on the live stream. Look at me. Look at my whatever gimmick that I have. In addition to me having bad work. Like, that's like just being bad. Like, for instance, the guy in the pink suit, which I'm still stunned that this is an ESPN employee that behaved like that. But, like, his question was legitimate in a way, but there's a professional way to go about asking that question.
Exactly.
It takes nothing to just give a little bit of tact, a little bit of professionalism when asking that question. It is a very valid question to ask Conor McGregor. Hey, why should we expect anything different when we haven't seen you get more than one win in X amount of time, without turning it into a spectacle? And the exaggerated voice and the pointing the finger, and it's stupid. It's really stupid. And yes, if you want to do that, please do that on a fan Q&A. Or the UFC, just don't even call this a press conference anymore. Don't even have the media participate. Let's let the media sit there and take notes, and you just pass the mic through the crowd and let them say whatever stupid fucking thing that comes to their mind. Because that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like the mic got passed to the crowd. John Morgan got the mic, Jose got the mic, and then the clown show began. Like that, and that I find really disturbing, because each one of those people ends up coming back to us that we have to answer for. Kristen, remember when we had our column together at My MMA News, it was, I think, the Conor Cowboy build-up. We did a column centered around that and that press conference, and how silly it was, and how how the fans were booing these legitimate questions and whatnot. We get lumped into any discussion about MMA media because, hey, we're all the same. Apparently, we are still having to deal with people pointing out that slimeball piece of shit who hopefully is dead in the gutter, Ian Kidd. We still have to. And I know you at Bloody Elbow deal with this all the time. I see the mentions in that website. Like, anytime you guys put an article on, aren't you the pedophile site? Like, it's so amazing how stupid people are that they can't separate certain individuals. And the fact that this is packaged as, hey, this is a media event, says a lot. But also very consistent with the UFC's treatment toward legitimate journalistic work. Ariel Helwani just dropped an atomic bomb on on Bristol and Las Vegas in an interview with Dan Le Batard earlier today. Josh Gross, who we talk about all the time, Loretta Hunt, the names go on and on. Bloody Elbow as a whole, like, we've seen this time and time again, and this is what the path is being waved out to for fanboys to get credentials and say stupid things and taking away from actual newsworthy content. So there it is. My rant is over for the day.
The only thing that I think I need to answer and push back a little more on Kristen's otherwise excellent point, there is no room in this sport for Robbie Fox, because Robbie Fox actively takes away from other legitimate journalists that are trying to get a seat at the table. There isn't enough room for everybody. and that's the problem. There are outlets. There's a serious example when Ben and I went down to well, he was already there to cover UFC 247 in Houston. There were members and colleagues that were not able to get credentials because other less legitimate, more spectacle-like TMZ-esque outlets were getting seats, and they got front row seats. I was in the back row. It's fine. I covered everything up in front, but like Ben couldn't even get floor access. There's literally not enough seats at the table, and when one of the front row seats is occupied by a person that couldn't pick Amanda Nunes out of a lineup. What are we doing here? I think of so many more people in this industry that have worked hard, that have journalism degrees and backgrounds and whatever it may be, and can't get an interview with Dana White, and yet Robbie Fox is invited and flown out to the UFC headquarters on the UFC's dime because of this, that, and the other thing. It's not fun anymore when that happens, because you look and go, you've done nothing to get here besides get drunk and say dumb things on the internet. You add nothing to the discourse. You don't. I've read Robbie Fox. I'm pointing him out directly. I've read his content. It's not content. It's nothing. It's if TMZ got drunk and wrote up sensationalist 3-paragraph stories at best. It's nothing. It's vapid. It's a waste. And it's taking up good space that other people and other good outlets should have. And that's why I'm irritated by that. When Robbie Fox gets the fourth question, and his question is not a question, but it is an active endorsement for one fighter. That's not what media does.
The code of conduct for media when you get credentialed is to not actively root for any fighters. Like that's something that is very expressly
for
written.
The UFC
says that. Yeah. And like Robbie, like
he's not the only one. I'm singling him out because he's
I know exactly why you're singling him out, because he's kind of one put in the forefront of this sort of wave of so-called media. And like I forget what fight week it was. I sat beside him on press row and chatted with him a little bit. I can't remember what it was for the life of me. Nice guy. Like as a human being, he seems like a nice, cool guy, and great to have a beer with him or something like that. But you don't belong in that spot, dude. Like when you have people who have sharper minds for the sport, this is my thing with media, with MMA media, as I think all sports media or any media focus on any one particular area. If you're talking about movies, if you're talking about music, if you're talking about politics, that you are, as a media, I think your job is to add wrinkles to the conversation, to think deeper, to add something that the layperson is not going to immediately come to their mind. That is your job. Your job is to add layers to the discussion. If you are unable to add a layer to the discussion, I'm sorry, you do not belong at the table where things are being discussed. Discuss that shit somewhere else. If you want to cry about a victory or a defeat and just slobber all over someone's Johnson, do it somewhere else. Let the people who have actual technical analysis, let the people who actually look at the deeper things as far as the business or the overarching issues of the sport have their space, because they are the ones that add wrinkles to the discussion. They are the ones that add a deeper meaning to what's going on and add historical context. In 100 years, when we're looking at the era of mixed martial arts beginning to become a big sport, are we going to look toward the Twitter clips of a man in a pink suit saying something stupid, or are we going to look to some of the in-depth business reporting of John Nash? Which one stands the test of time? Which one legitimizes the sport, and which one makes it feel like a fucking mockery?
I think both of them do, but the pink suit people and Robbie Fox screaming into his own phone aimed at his own face from press row, like cheering McGregor, they become part of the story of the sport. And let's face it, the sport is 30 years old. 30 years into the existence of the NFL, they were still wearing leather helmets. Like we're in the leather helmet era, and it'll be like, you remember when the media basically tried to make itself part of the circus sideshow and tried to draw attention towards itself rather than what was happening in the cage? they'll be part of the conversation. They'll be part of the story, but not in a way that's flattering or anything to be proud of.
No, good point there. Good point there. Like, yeah. So before we move on from this, and continuing down the Robbie Fox train, I like Robbie Fox as a person, but man, what a dumpster fire outlet. Barstool Sports can suck a fat one. I just thought about a tweet from one of the Barstool guys about Nigerian athletes.
Oh, that guy. Jesus.
That made me want to piss on his leg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that shit like that gets you slapped, bro. Like, just real talk. That shit can get you slapped. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. Yeah, that just really pissed me the fuck off. Sorry, it's total tangent, but it's my channel. I can do this shit. I can do this. All right, so I guess we can move on to other talk about 264 because surprisingly, other people fought as well. So, but Kristen, I'm gonna give you the honor of the day here for our new segment, Shallow Cuts. It's new to you because you haven't been on since we started this, but it's only a few weeks old or whatever. We're gonna have a minute to talk about any of the questions here. So, looks like I'm gonna let you assign who gets the minute for what question. So, Kristen, the floor is yours. Pass out assignments. We are all anxiously awaiting.
Let me pull up the questions. Let me see which one that I want to answer. Let's see.
I like this format.
Well, I guess I can go. Wait, hold on. Oh, I want to. You can have that one. Don't worry. I guess I will go with. Did you agree with Herb Dean's stoppage in the O'Malley Moutinho fight? When would you have stopped it, if at all? Because I am all about the bloodlust of the sport, apparently. And so it was very odd watching that fight happen just because I don't know, sometimes there's an inconsistency with Herb Dean. He will allow someone to take a beating and have no issues, no qualms about it whatsoever. But then there's those times like this one and the Sean O'Malley and Kris Moutinho fight where he comes to his senses, maybe a little too late, but he definitely did. And he stopped the fight. But it was just a very odd timing of that because I believe there was just about 28 to 30 seconds left in the third round. So when he stopped it, everyone was like, what the hell are you doing? Now you care about fire safety when he was getting pummeled for the first and second round? Like, it didn't make any sense. But then I calmed down. I realized that it was probably a warranted stoppage. And I know a lot of people do not want to hear that because they just wanted to see this guy go out on his shield, which is pretty much a requirement if you're going to be a fighter. Apparently, that's what people like to see. And so, yeah, it was just a very odd timing, but I appreciate the stoppage. I probably would have stopped it a little bit earlier. I don't know if I would have stopped it after the knockdown in the first round where he was clearly wobbled, or maybe before the second round, because as you heard Joe Rogan on the broadcast, he's out on his feet. He's not there. So I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. But yeah, that's my takeaway.
All right, nice. Actually, that was a little bit overtime, but not your fault because I had my mic muted and no one heard the bells ringing. So I am the goofball for that one. So, Kristen, now pass out the next assignment. Who answers what question next?
Okay, Ben requested this one. So he's going to get question number 3, and that is, why doesn't Irene Aldana just move up to 145 pounds for a fast track title shot?
All right, 1 minute, Ben. The clock begins now.
This might be a little controversial, but I think it's the same reason that, say, Macy Chiasson doesn't do the same thing. None of them think they can beat her. You can argue that nobody wants to make beds in a burning house, and it looks like 145 could be shut down any day. But if they thought they could beat her, they wouldn't care about that. They'd be like TJ Dillashaw going down to 125 and saying, I'm going to shut this shit down. They don't move up to 145 because they may not want to be fast-tracked to a title shot. I don't think any of them really think they can beat her.
Oh,
full stop.
Wow, with a whole 25 seconds to spare. And quite frankly, I think you nailed it right there. That's exactly what I would have said if that question were given to me. So I'm just going to stop this clock because there's no point in letting it run out. Kristen, me and Jay are left, and there are 2 questions left on the board. Who gets what?
All right. I'm going to give Jay question number 1, which is how many more wins will Gilbert Burns need to get another title shot?
Jeez, this is like a how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop question. Man, Gilbert Burns is in such a Joe Benavidez-like position. There are other other challengers you can see over the years that have all the wins except for the one that they want the most. And Burns, I think we've discussed part of this before, that Burns had Usman hurt a bit, but it wasn't definitive. And, what are you going to say? Oh, yeah, I hurt the guy, so I need a rematch. His performance against Wonder Boy was, I didn't expect it was going to happen. I didn't think he was going to be able to hit blast doubles from across the cage and get a guy with notoriously effective takedown defense on his back. But he did. He did that, and he cemented himself as the clear number 3 guy in the division. But Duffy said this on his post-fight show with Keith Schillen, in that he's going to need to probably fight it down to go up. And that's too bad for him. He might fight like a winner of he might fight Chiesa. He's not fighting Luque because they're buddies. I guess that's all.
All right. Not a bad answer there. I agree with just about all points on that. Kristen, I guess you don't have to. Oh, yeah, I guess I have to answer the following question. In fact, Chris, how about you ask me the question and then I'll ring the bell.
Okay, so Ant's question is going to be, was Tai Tuivasa the biggest winner of UFC 264?
If the ultimate prize was my heart, then yes, Tai Tuivasa was the biggest winner of UFC 264. What a fantastic showing by Mr. Tuivasa. This man not only walked out to a Spice Girl song in one of the funniest, most ironic ways to enter caged violence, he went out there and smoked a perpetually ignorant, stupid, and waste of skin like Greg Hardy, smoked him, just absolutely smoked him, and then did a ton of shoeys on the way out of the door, including one on the side of the cage out of an Air Force One. I'm telling you, this man is a legend. And he even did one with hot sauce, took a well, although the guy who did that is a jackass and probably deserved to be next on the Greg Hardy Express. I think that Tai Tuivasa just sealed it in my heart, but not the biggest winner monetarily or from a legacy standpoint. All right. So that will do it for Shallow Cuts. Now let's move on to where we break out our seasoning salt, our paprika, and anything else we like to flavor food with, because it's time to ask the age-old question, how's Taste My Crow? Kristen, tell me, how's Taste My Crow?
Okay, so hold on. Is this a new segment? Because I'm not.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is
I think it was eating crow before.
It was eating crow before.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's just where I admit like where I was wrong or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fight you picked wrong.
Fight that I picked wrong. Let's see. Oh, I did make a last minute decision to switch my pick from Aldana to Kunitskaya, and that was simply because I was worried about the type of weight cut that Aldana had, and I was a little bit worried as to how she was going to handle Kunitskaya, who seemed to be a lot more aggressive in this fight than normal. And then Aldana does Aldana things, and she landed that, what was it, a left hand? That shit was like, pow. And Yana went down and she finished the fight. It really broke my heart because you saw in the post-fight press conference where Dana White was like, I think I'm going to give her a bonus. But then someone had to point out that like she missed weight. And he's like, well, I don't know if I should reward that. And I'm like, I know you shouldn't, but maybe in this instance, sure. Because I think of Irene Aldana as like a future title contender. And I think she was on her way prior to the Holly Holm loss. So this was a prime showing. I was so excited to see that. I'm so excited to see this little baby. Oh my goodness. And that is where I ate crow.
All right. So Ben, I guess I'll ask you the question next. How's Taste My Crow?
I'll grab the co-main event. Going into this one, I had Stephen Thompson in this fight, and I had him. I expected not only that he would win, but that he'd make it look kind of easy. I just didn't believe in Gilbert Burns quite yet. He's put on some spectacular performances, but I feel as though he skipped the line just a little bit at welterweight, which is why I said on the post-fight show that his next fight is probably going to look like a step down, just because he's going to have to fight someone ranked lower than himself, while everything above him sorts itself out. But his ability to close the distance with Thompson and get him down, I was shocked. Like, he is such an explosive athlete. He has some of the best takedown entries of probably any Brazilian in the sport right now. I say that, like, since 1993, that's been at least the cliche that, the Brazilians, they're great once it's on the ground, but a lot of them aren't great at getting it there. And you either go the Jacare route and you leverage your athleticism and train with the right people and just become a great wrestler, or you go the Damian Maia route where, hey, I learned a pretty good single and a bunch of really persistent and annoying ways to either take a guy's back or, turn it into a takedown or a scramble afterwards. Burns has gone the Jacare route. He has got a great double leg and he finishes it with authority. And that's what the fight kind of ran on. Once that was established, it was Thompson's fight to figure out and try to figure out a way to win. He wasn't able to. I mean, this is the best win of Gilbert Burns' career in my book, and I didn't see it coming. I will take all that crow.
All right, Jay, House takes my crow.
I believed in magic, and magic betrayed me. The wizard did not deliver the goods this time. And, I had that feeling in my gut that Ryan Hall, he's what, 36 now. He's been away for 2 years, I think, almost to the day. And it wasn't, for lack of trying. I'm sure people were like, I don't want to deal with that. I understand that. I still have a little hope that TriStar's got something left in the tank. It wasn't meant to be. And also the fact that I didn't believe completely in Ilia Topuria. Now, he worked his way up to the UFC through Brave, and Brave is, we know some guys who've done it, but one of his wins was against an 0-0 guy. So how do we really know how you're going to be working your way into the UFC when 2 fights ago you're fighting a guy making his MMA debut? So what are you going to do? So he beat Yusuf Salal, which looks worse now that Salal has really been kind of nosediving. And Damon Jackson is the perpetual ultimate journeyman. I love the Leech. Don't get it twisted. I've written entire articles riffing on him and his performance and his name. And I think I wrote an LFA piece when he did something spectacular. I think I used James Bond movie titles and I put the Leech instead, like From Russia with Leech and whatever, something like that. And I had a lot of fun. So I like him a lot. But he didn't have anything that don't impress me. That they don't impress me much, I think is the song title. So to see him totally go, no, Ryan Hall, we're not doing that. Knock it off, kid. Like, it felt like a kid wrestling with his dad. Just totally nothing of that is going to work on me. You're not going to trick me. You're not going to get me. I'm much better than you at all of this. Move out of the way, son. And then he put him away. So to see Ryan Hall get big brothered and completely obliterate the mystique about the guy, that was a real bit of salty crow for me.
Definitely a good one, Jay. I had a lot of crow to eat this week, but I'll just I'll highlight one that hasn't been talked about yet. Brad Tavares and Omari Akhmedov. Like, as highly as I think of Brad Tavares, I thought Omari Akhmedov would have been the perfect foil for him. Like, a guy on the come up with a heavy wrestling game, someone who can just kind of stop you in the tracks and stop you from doing anything you like to do. And Brad Tavares being someone who has used a lot of movement, a lot of quick striking in and out. It just seemed like the perfect setup for Akhmedov to do what he does, and stop him in his tracks. Definitely not the way that worked out. I mean, Brad Tavares showed impeccable takedown defense, great ability to get up from the ground when he did hit the floor, and also the wrinkle to the takedown defense that I was most amazed by was using strikes to discourage the takedowns, the leg kicks that what, you don't like the leg kicks that battered Akhmedov, took away a lot of the power in his shots, made him hesitate. Just a wonderful performance by Brad Tavares, who, in case you needed to be reminded, is an elite level middleweight fighter, even if he can't beat the guys who eventually fight for the title. So I'll eat that crow all day long.
I don't know if anybody has said this. I'm pretty sure it sounded like something that Duffy would say, but Tavares is like the anti-Hawaiian fighter. Like, he's not the just scrap kind of guy. He's not even a sprawl and brawler like you think. He's just, I mean, like, he has the most decision wins in UFC history. Like, he did that this week, tying GSP and Magny and somebody else, Diego Sanchez, I think. Yeah, man, he's just, I don't know if I'll ever know what to make of him, and that's just fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. So now we're going to move on to perhaps the greatest title segment in all of media history, and that is I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcon. So Ben, I'll begin with you.
Okay, well, this week's I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcon segment comes courtesy of my wife. I've mentioned her on the show a few times before, mostly in the context of her occupation. You know, she's a nurse, and specifically over the last year and a half, she's been a nurse working almost exclusively with COVID patients. So it's come up there as I've kind of used her as a barometer for how the pandemic is really going on the ground floor. But today I want to talk about her as a nurse in the context of being a fringe mixed martial arts appreciator. Because normally anytime I'm watching fights, whether it's a live event going on or I'm just watching footage ahead of a preview, she's always, in the room kind of peeking on, oh, who's fighting, what's going on. Always wants to weigh in on the bad injuries. Her career track is, she's going towards wound care. She's really into wounds. I don't get it. I should probably be worried. I don't know. But on Saturday, UFC 264, I showed her all the gnarly stuff. She saw the Conor McGregor ankle injury. She's like, oh, that looks like a tibia, blah, blah, blah. Shrugged it off. I showed her the Jessica I horrific forehead
third
gash,
eye.
Both
third eye,
with blood, without blood, where you could see her thoughts like through the hole. She was like, oh, doesn't bother her at all. She happened to chance to be walking by and see Nico Price pick up his mouthpiece from the canvas and stick it straight back into his mouth. That made her gag. Like that.
Really?
That's what freaks out a nurse, is like bacterial infection, like lack of sanitation, lack of containment of contaminants. That's what like grosses her out. So right after that, I showed her the shoey.
I bet she loved it. Okay, can you please share with us her thoughts on a shoey?
She was completely horrified, and she was extra horrified because she understood that it was probably like Bud Light or some shit, and we're both beer snobs. So it's not even a good enough beer to kill the germs, It's
like, yeah. So what's worse, drinking someone else's spit or drinking Bud Light? I don't know. It tastes the same, buddy. I'm sure. Yeah. It tastes the same. Yeah. You know what? I can definitely vouch for the mouth guard thing. I once got a bad infection doing that exact same thing, picking up a mouth guard off the mat after it getting knocked out, or I spit it out or something like that, and just shoved it back in. A few days later, I started coming down with a big fever and couldn't talk and had an abscess, and it was pretty gross. So yeah, don't do that. Clean your mouth guards, everyone. Jay, what's your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons this week?
One of these days, I'm going to have something positive to talk about. I swear it's just a matter of time. But what can I do when MMA happens and we let it happen? So a story came out unrelated to very, very tangentially related to the UFC, because at one time he did compete for the UFC in the very, very old days. Travis Fulton is he's not iconic. He's not legendary. I don't know what exactly the word you could use to describe strictly his combat career. Not him as a person, just him as a career. Travis Fulton, who's nicknamed the Iron Man, has over 300 fights in MMA. I think it's 255 wins, by far the most, by a factor of 2 or something like that. I think Dan Severn is the next closest one, and he's got like 101, maybe 100 or so. So Travis Fulton, after his last fight was in 2019, he fought our beloved Shannon Rich and tapped him out sort of with a forearm choke, sort of, kind of, not really. And that was the end of that. And he kind of disappeared because he was being charged for possession of child pornography, and for trying to endanger a child and exploit a child and lure the child to his wherever to take pictures of said child. This was the indictment, and those were the allegations. And according to a report I read, he was planning on pleading guilty over that on Monday or something like that. And it would be to pleading guilty to possession and exploitation, whatever. And it was gonna, I think the plea, oh no, actually I take it back. The plea was in a couple weeks, the actual plea hearing to plead guilty. He hung himself over the weekend. And so there's no actual, I mean, you will only forever be able to say these are allegations, these are charges, because he's not alive, and therefore, that's a whole mess to try and prosecute a deceased person. I held him in high regard as a competitor over the years because of his bizarre longevity and the ability to compete like a Muay Thai fighter. Because Muay Thai fighters in Thailand especially are known for fighting basically every other week. There are fighters with 400 fights, 500 fights in professional Muay Thai competition. And Fulton did this as a pro when there was a looser regulation from like the late 90s up until now. I mean, there was a time where he fought 40 times in a year, 50 times in a year, just unheard of numbers. And then I got to know him on the underground when he posted and said some kind of unfortunately extremely racist things, and my opinion of him diminished. So I don't know if I can respect him, because I can't respect him as a person, which means I don't know if I can respect his achievements, because I don't think I can separate the art from the artist, so to speak. So I guess that's my story. I guess that's it. He's gone, and wow.
So I don't know about you guys, but when I saw that news pop up on my timeline, like the oxygen just seemed cleaner. Like,
yeah, and Jay, being the attorney that he is, laid it out that he'll never be officially convicted now or officially guilty, even though it appeared as though he was going to plead guilty. Yes. I'll just say, if you're listening to this and you think you might like to make child pornography and you think you might like to hang yourself, just hang yourself first.
Yeah,
please. Yeah, just skip right to the end of the movie. Yeah, that's the part we all came for anyway.
Yeah,
so
eat your dessert first.
Yeah, exactly. So Kristen, did you have I'm not surprised? Because I don't.
Yeah, I will go. I will first address Ben's wife, who is probably my favorite person right now, because literally my love of gruesome injuries, as you guys so as you guys so eloquently put it when you introduced me earlier, is simply because of those special effects makeup artists like Tom Savini, Rick Baker, all those that are super prominent in the 80s, and especially horror movies. You guys know that's my jam. And it's also based on a pretty obscure MTV show. I don't know if you guys remember, but remember the show named Scarred? And it was hosted by the lead singer of what's the band, Papa Roach, I think.
Was it Jacoby Shaddix? Yeah.
Yes, those.
Wow, I know that. Oh my God.
Those two elements literally are the reason why I absolutely am fascinated with gruesome injuries. So I get Ben's wife.
Cut my face into pieces.
Yeah, I'm totally with that. But I also agree with her when, you see a shoey and spit and hot sauce. It's kind of gross. So I totally get that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. My surprise Mr. Falcons thing is Kris Moutinho's performance at UFC 264 against Sean O'Malley literally surpassed my expectations. When he was announced as the Sugar Show sweepstakes winner, I was very intrigued because it just seemed like a lot of people were painting him in the light of lamb being led into slaughter. And I'm never really one to point it out like that. Like, I'm a very optimistic person. I try to give everybody a chance. And so watching back his tape to kind of get familiar with his work, I was like, does he have a chance? Probably. Is it a minimal one? Yes. But he can't do what he typically does in fights, which is he kind of has like a take one, get one approach. And against someone that is as elite as Sean O'Malley, I mean, some of those strikes were probably good enough to put any other bantamweight out. And I mean, yes, he did get dropped, but he was still there. He's still coming forward. So for those people who painted him out as, oh, he's going to be one of those people that's going to get knocked out in the first round. I'm sure Sean O'Malley thought he was going to get knocked out in the first round. He really did surpass my expectations, and I did not expect that. Did I expect him to put up a fight? Sure, because he has a lot to prove. He's coming in there with a chip on his shoulder. You're not going to paint me as some type of loser or whatnot. And then he put on that type of performance where I don't even think I talked mainly about Sean O'Malley. I'm genuinely interested in Kris Moutinho. So I am very much hoping that the UFC gives him a couple more fights, especially one of those fights that's like, hey, thanks for saving our kid here and entering the fight on short notice. So I hope to see Kris Moutinho stick around. I would love to see what he does against maybe a lower tier bantamweight just to kind of build up more interest. But I think he made a lot of fans on Saturday night. So that's my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment.
They should bring back Lewis Gowden, though, and have a green on green battle.
Maybe they can both wear yellow trunks.
Considering Moutinho should probably be a flyweight, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah. Not a bad one at all. Like I as much as I disagree with that winning fight of the night, I'm glad that he got an extra check like that. Definitely. That was good.
Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how that works? Because I feel better about that having him getting paid. Remember, this is a guy who quit his job from, I think he was a paint salesman. And he fought in the regional circuit, never had a really high one. So his best paycheck was not even $5,000 after a fight. So this is that's more money than he's made in his career, even if he was underpaid, which we know fighter pay is an issue. So
paint salesman looks like he came straight from work.
No,
you're gonna bring someone with you. Bring what got you to the dance.
All right. So of course, as we know, the sport never stops, even just long enough to digest a very crazy weekend from UFC 264. The UFC is pushing on with a card headlined by Islam Makhachev and Thiago Moises. Bellator also in action this weekend with a card that we probably didn't know was going on. Juliana Velasquez and Denise Kielholtz in that headliner. Out of these cards, which admittedly are pretty underwhelming when you look at the entire lineup, is there one fight on either one of these cards that stands out to you, or just another one of the shows, KSW and LFA also in action this weekend, that you just want to highlight for a brief moment here before we wrap things up?
I guess I'll take one that I hope won't be taken by any of you guys, so I'm stealing your thunder. It'll be on the UFC card because even though I'm covering Bellator 262, losing the Linton Vassell fight. When you lose a Linton Vassell fight and you go, "Whoa, that hurt the card," oh boy. So in this situation, a low, I think it's on the main card. It's early on in the main card. Is a grappler's delight in a fight that I genuinely want to see how it's going to play out, because Rodolfo Vieira is coming back from his first career loss, which was, dare I say, a humiliating defeat when he got guillotined by Fluffy Hernandez as the black belt hunter who basically all of his wins were by submission, Mondials, ADCC, all of the accolades, all of the gold medals, and he got tapped to a guy that he does what he wants. To come back against Dustin Stoltzfus is an interesting test for him, because Stoltzfus, if you guys don't know, is a guy that can hit twisters. So this isn't a normal, everyday, average grappler. He fights out of Pennsylvania, so I've kind of known about him for longer than most of y'all, which is, I don't think that's a fair thing, because he fights mostly in Europe, in Germany, a lot of his events in Germany. And he made his way onto the UFC when he fought in the Contender Series last year, and the guy hurt his elbow. Do you remember if Stoltzfus was signed from that, or if they said, "Sorry, pal, it was an injury, we're going to bring you on, but we're not going to offer you the contract"? Do you remember that was the case? If he was a short notice, because he was brought in to fight Kyle Dawkins, and that was a tough fight for him. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Anyway, my point is will Vieira figure out his cardio? Will there be some fun grappling? Will this be mayhem and nonsense? I hope so.
All right, good one there. Kristen, any fight this weekend that you want to give a brief spotlight to?
I think it's probably going to come as a shock because I believe it's on the prelims of the UFC card, but I just think it's a fun firefight to watch. Gabriel Benitez versus Billy Quarantillo. Those guys can throw down, and it's such an intriguing matchup at featherweight. So when I looked at the card, obviously I'm super excited to see Miesha Tate return and see how she does against Marion Renault. But I wanted something different than the main event and the co-main event. So I looked at the rest of the card. I was like, okay, I'm still going to watch it because it's content, it's product. And that was the one that just like spoke to me. I like that one. I like that one a lot. And as far as the Bellator card, I actually had to look that up. I was not aware that they were having a fight. And then I realized that there is a new women's flyweight champion. I've just always registered my mind that it's been Alima Lay McFarland. And no, Juliana Velasquez, she shut that down. So I wish they promoted her a little bit better, especially I believe this is her first title defense since taking it off of Alima Lay. But I will be tuned into that just to see how she fares because she's very good. And I'm pretty sure she can go on a long run in that division. I just wish that they would put a little bit more energy and attention on her, especially if she is the champion, the current champion.
Yeah, and they gave a fair amount of promotion to the person she dethroned. So you think that some of that effort might translate over to promoting the current champion, but guess not.
Hawaii and made her sing and had people sing and dance for her. But no,
Velasquez
let's just buried on a card that we didn't know about. I would like to say just before you guys, I am very proud of you, Kristen. The answer that you gave, it's UFC, whatever, but it's content, so I'll watch it. That's how they get you. That's how they get me. That's how they get all of us.
Yeah.
Suckers with ESPN
I'm so
Plus
happy you're comfortable. No, you're comfortable enough in your own skin to admit, well, it's on, so I'll be there.
100%. I'm like, what the hell else am I gonna do? That's my mindset. What else am I gonna do?
All right, Ben, give me one fight from either of the cards this weekend that you want to give a brief spotlight to.
Well, like Kristen, I'll give a little love to the Bellator card. This is definitely like a calm before the storm card. The best and biggest fight in Bellator history is happening a week from now with Pitbull and McKee. But there's some good stuff on here. Kristen was surprised that there's a new flyweight champ. I'm surprised that the challenger is Denise Kielholtz because I'd kind of written her off as kind of like a dilettante and a sideshow, and I was shocked to see that she's on a 4-fight winning streak in Bellator. So hey, always good. It's a shame that Mike Goldberg isn't there anymore because it's always fun to hear him try to pronounce her husband's name. We're not going to hear him say, "There is her husband, herpty derp in the court." And like we won't get that this time. But I'll give some love to the co-main event: Tyrell Fortune versus Matt Mitrione. Tyrell Fortune he's one of the best prospects in Bellator of the Bellator style. We're going to sign a high-level college wrestler and give him plenty of time to learn on the job. That's what Bellator does better than any other promotion in the world. And Matt Mitrione is a huge name, but he's also on a terrible slide where finally it's gone off a cliff and Matt Mitrione just doesn't look good anymore. I expect Fortune to just run through him, but Fortune needs those reps. So I like this fight. And worst case, if he loses, we get an ACS meltdown on the Sherdog forums. So I'm buckled in for a good night either way.
All right. So I'll give a spotlight to a prelim fight on the UFC card, and that's between a man with 2 last names and a man who was kind of forged from the beginning of the Reebok era, and that's Anderson Dos Santos and Miles Johns. I think that's going to be a pretty fun fight. It just sounds like explosive striking exchange throughout, and I'm here for it. So that's one that should keep us entertained in an otherwise pretty lackluster as far as name value is concerned weekend, considering the big just star-studded card that we just went through. So what's up?
Can we all agree that Stevens versus Mateus Gamrot is your fight of the night? Like, you can probably hand the check out now. Am I wrong there?
No, I agree.
I'm
mean,
just looking at this card, I'm thinking Stevens has the same fight IQ he's had the past decade. And he's going to walk in on a losing streak.
IQ he walks around in life with. But
yes, but he's on a losing streak, and he's on the kind of losing streak where there are some fighters they get kind of timid when they start to lose and get more conservative to just win. That ain't Jeremy Stevens. Jeremy Stevens walked Calvin Kattar down and got his face rearranged. Like, so I just feel this is Jeremy Stephens. He's 35. He's on a really long losing streak. He's got the most losses in UFC history and wants to make that up. And Gamer is going to stand right in front of him. That's all.
That should be a fun one. Also, I think it's notable that Jeremy Stephens shouldn't even be on this card. Injuring Jakar Close and somehow another injuring Jakar Close in the face-off, and he is in action while Jakar is missing out on paychecks, sitting on the sideline. So I'll leave those thoughts there. Kill me in the comments if you disagree, and if you disagree, so you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Big thanks to Kristen for jumping on the panel again. Can't wait to have you back. And yeah, this is great. Every time I talk to you, I'm having a blast. So check out her work on Bloody Elbow. See the Twitter handle, give her a follow. Ben, Jay, you know where to find them on Sherdog.com. And of course, you know where to find me on the Body Lock and MMA on Point. So stay beautiful, stay positive, stay threatening your opponents with a broken leg to kill them in their sleep, wondering how you're going to get there, how you're going to sneak, because you got to have somebody to will you into the room to do such thing. But anyway, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.